All right. Hey, I want to share how I made this fireball with you real quick. It's a really simple, really easy prop to make. It's really fast, and you're going to watch me do it like almost in real time. I mean, it's just really quick, and you can use it for a multitude of sets and figures, and you know, it's just really a cool little prop to have. And I'm going to show you how we get into it right here. Some real simple materials. You need hot glue. You need some sort of wire to create a frame to hot glue the polyfill to. Here I'm using this wire that I use. It's a rebar tying wire. It's really stiff, and so I like it. You can also use stuff like beading armature wire or floral armature wire, stuff like that. But I like this wire because you get a big spool of it. It's really stiff, and I can use it to post figures too, so it's really nice. Need some hot glue. I've got the figure here that I want to use to make the fire effect for, and that's Arakagor. I can't even say these names for these Mythic Legions figures, but I like them. Anyway, I want to get a measurement. Probably like around 5 inches is how long I want this thing to be, 5 or 6 inches. So I'm just going to go ahead and get a length of this wire off of here, and I'm going to double it over, and this is going to be the skeleton, sort of the frame that the polyfill is going to be glued to, so that I can build up the shape of the fireball and sort of, you know, build it out into the shape that I want, and make it look like it ends up looking like a chicken drumstick, but that's good because I like chicken. Anyway, so we're a bit long here. We're gonna trim this down. What's the old saying? Measure once, cut twice? No. Measure once, cut once. Something like that. Anyway, I didn't do that, so make sure you get it right. So we're going to give it a little twist here on the ends, and then I'm just going to twist it by hand. You can also put this in the end of a cordless drill, tighten the chuck down, and turn the drill on, and it will spin that thing up real nice and tight and give you a nice rigid piece of wire to pose figures with and things like that also if you want to. But here we're just going to use it for making a fireball for the dragon. Because what good is a dragon that doesn't even have a fireball? I mean, he looks cool, but you got to have some fire, man. I mean, that's what dragons do, you know. So we'll twist the end of it up here, and I'm going to leave a little bit of a piece on the end to sort of give the end. You know how the fireball, it sort of tapers. It goes thin from when it's coming out of the mouth to, like, at the end it's all, you know, bigger on the end and more inflated. And so I kind of want the end to stay a bit wide so that I can build up the polyfill around there, and it's easier for the glue to stick on there. So I just hold it up to him and make sure that it looks about right, and it's what we're going to go with. So I'm going to flatten this out just a little bit because it's just easier when I'm going to go twist this. You'll see what I do. I put the glue on there, and then I turn it like a key and I wrap the polyfill around it. You'll devise your own way to do it, but I mean, it doesn't get much simpler than this. A piece of wire, some hot glue, some polyfill. It's important to use polyfill. You can use like cotton, but I like this right here. You get a big bag of it from Walmart or like the arts and crafts store or a sewing fabric store like Joann's or something. It's polyfill, and just tear you a chunk off like that, man. And the one thing about this, and I'll show you a little trick here that I do, get the little big pieces out of there. I'll kind of dry fit this on there and just pull off enough to work with it and build it up in layers. You're not trying to lob this all on there in one whack. You want to, you know, maintain a shape to it and be able to glue it on there and have it stick to itself a little bit, and not just pile some big blob of polyfill on there and then paint it. You want to sort of build this up, and you want this base layer to be definitely one that is tight around the skeleton of the frame of the wire. And so I think we got enough on there, and I'm going to go ahead, and now that I kind of dry fit it on there, I'm just going to pull it off there. I'm going to put a little hot glue on there. And I do everything with gloves on, but I do this with gloves on because, you know, when the hot glue gets on your hands, it's not fun. It hurts, and at least this way when it gets on the glove, it's not like directly on your skin. You know, because I do that. And that can happen with this, so be careful. You know, I don't think it really matters the brand of glue that you use either. You just want to, I have to look at it because it's what I buy. And we'll get that on there. We'll go ahead and sort of lay this over the thin part of the wire frame here, and I want to twist this. I want to turn it on there. I want this to really stick on there really nicely. And if some glue, you know, gets on your gloves, or it gets, you know, in a spot you don't want it, don't worry about it. You just put a little more polyfill over the top of it. It's not a big deal. It's not gonna, you're not gonna mess it up. You can't really mess this up. Even me, I can't really mess it up. Give me enough time, I will. I'll find a way to turn it into something totally complicated and ruin it, because that's another thing that I do, but it's all right. So we want to twist this, and I'm going to get it on my glove. Yes, you can see it's going to get on there, but it's not a big deal. It just helps it stick to itself a little bit better. Now, you don't want to wrap glue all around the outside of the thing, because then, you know, you're going to see it when you go to photograph this. So you want to kind of keep the glue hidden with another layer of polyfill over the top of it. But we want this tight. And we want it to go from a small point, sort of like a rat tail. We want it to go, you know, from a real small point where the part is going to go into the dragon's mouth, and then it's going to get wider as it gets further away from the dragon's mouth. And so, and have enough, I have enough on the end, on the narrow end, so that it fills the dragon's mouth also. So that when you do the, if you look at my photo, you'll see that his mouth is full of fire, and it's because I let the polyfill, I leave extra on the end down there, so it's a little bit fluffy. You want fluffy, billowy fire. So here's a good base layer. I'm cool with this. I think it looks pretty good. See, I just use it like a key and just twist it on there, make sure it's all wrapped on there real nice. Now you got a good layer for something to stick to, another layer of polyfill to stick to, so that's important. First layer down. Now we're going to go ahead and start building this up a little bit. And let's speed the video up a little bit too, because honestly, I'm not that exciting to listen to, so the shorter the video, the better. We'll wrap this around. I'll dry fit the pieces on there first, just to make sure that it's, you know, going to be enough, and it's not going to spread too thin. It's going to give me the bulk that I want, and the shape that I want, and that's it, man. We're just going to build this up. It's really not hard. You can't really mess this up as long as you get one end that's skinny that fit in the mouth and one end that's fatter. That's it, man. You know, there's no right or wrong way to make this fire shape. Mine's going to look like a chicken drumstick, and that's perfectly fine. You know, it's however you want it to look. And what I'll do is you'll see me sort of drag it down a little bit. That's going to give me these little ridges and stuff in there. Instead of one smooth fireball, it's going to give me like a ridge that goes around the different layers, and I kind of like the way that looks. So, and I'll keep doing a little twist on there because it gives shape to the fire spray also, and it's not just like some smooth bit of foam, you know what I mean? Polyfill, it's got some texture, and it's got some twist, and it's got some shape, and it's got some bulk, and that's important. So I just kind of put it up next to the figure and see that it looks good, and it does. We're going to go ahead and building this up a little bit, and just put a little hot glue on at a time. You don't need a big massive blobs of this stuff, because it will get on your gloves, and then it will like string everywhere and make a mess. I want to get the end of this like it needs to be, because I wasn't really happy with the end of it. So we're going to get that on there and get the shape that we want. Here's a trick. So you can use a real low-tack adhesive spray, and that's what I do. And the reason that I do this, I'll do it twice. I'll do it once right here, so you can get rid of all those little frayed bits of wild random polyfill pieces that are just sticking out everywhere, and you just give it a real light mist, and then you just barely touch it. See how I'm just barely touching it with the glove, and that sort of lays all the fibers down and smooths them out, so that when you go to take a photo of this later, you don't have all these bits and pieces of wild hairs to to Photoshop and fix and post. So just go ahead and lightly drag them down. Now I'm going to do it here because it's going to help the paint stick to it better. If you have all those wild hairs and those random bits of fiber, when you airbrush this, or you can spray paint this too, even when you spray paint it, the paint is going to stick to those hairs before it falls to the actual body of the fire effect, and it's not going to look as good. And so the spray adhesive trick is a really nice trick to be able to use. You don't want to pack it, spray it on there, and then squeeze this all down. You want to maintain the shape. You're just really like a hot potato. You're just rolling this around in your hand. That's all you're doing. You're not really grabbing onto it at all. You're just letting it roll around in your hands and pat those fibers down. Let's go ahead and continue to build the shape of this up a little bit. And yeah, we'll just bulk it up and get it into a shape that is pleasant to look at. There's no science behind it really, but it's fun. And I mean, look how easy this is. You know, put a little bit more adhesive spray on there. It helps the other, polyfill stick to it. It keeps those fibers down. And it's just totally up to you how it looks. But I mean, you can see how easy this is. And honestly, I didn't really edit anything in this video out. It's like, this video is like 30 minutes. That's really just about how long it took me to make this, even with painting it. So it's a really fast project. You're going to see me airbrush this in a little bit, but you can totally just use spray paint. Matter of fact, I like using spray paint for a couple reasons. But it was too early in the morning when I did this, and I wasn't going to go outside and spray paint anything. I don't want to be one of those guys out there at 3 in the morning and people are like, what is he spray painting at 3 in the morning? I already get weird looks because I'm always up, So I just airbrushed this one. And the nice thing about airbrushing is it dries quickly. Spray paint takes a little bit longer to dry, but you're not really putting a lot of spray paint down on there, so it doesn't really take that long to dry either. But we got a good shape here. Pretty happy with the way this is turning out. We're going to go ahead and sort of tease the fibers out a little bit here and pull it and work it and kind of stretch it a little bit. Need a little bit of glue right there. So we're going to pull that down, stretch this whole thing out on the... That's why it's good to have a good solid base on that frame so that you can go ahead and work this into a shape after you get it all your layers down. Get it into a shape that you like, with a little fine tuning, just like you saw there. I think we're looking good, man. We're going to get ready to go paint this thing. A couple things on painting. Like I said, you're going to be able to... you're going to have to use spray paint or you're going to have to airbrush this. I don't see you brushing this on there. I don't think that's going to work. So spray paint, all you need is if you got some black, you got a red and you got a yellow. And, you can overlay the red and the yellow to make an orange, but I'll show you that here in just a second. Got a good shape, man. Here's some colors I'm going to use. Red, yellow, orange. And I don't really have to use the orange in this because I can mix red and yellow in my spray paint cup and it's going to come out orange. We do need black. Fire, believe it or not, dense fire does have shadow and it does block the sun. So if you've ever been burned by a dragon, you know this. Whatever. But I'm a proponent of mixing paint in a separate cup. However, for this little bit of paint that I'm going to be using here, we're just going to put a little thinner in there. And I'm just going to start with the paint right in the cup and just mix it in the airbrush cup because it's just such a little bit. I'd waste more mixing it in a separate cup and pouring it in than I would doing it this way. So start with your lightest color first. And especially since we're going to go from a progression from yellow and then we're going to put red in on top of the yellow, it's going to give us a nice orange. Then at the end, we're going to have, a darker red and a real light dusting of black on the very tip or the very edges of this. So we can mix the paint in the cup and we're going to get those natural blends of the colors, but you need to start with the lightest color first. And if you look at a fireball, when it's first coming out of the dragon's mouth, it's going to be really hot, and the hotter flame isn't the orange or the redder flame. It's It's a really light color. So I start with the yellow, then I work my way up to the reds and oranges, or I put a red in after the yellow, and that gives me my nice orange, and then I let that sort of graduate and feather off into the red toward the end of the flame. There's no blue. I don't put any blue in this, so technically I guess it's probably not a proper flame. Blue is more toward I remember when we were in school, we had these little Bunsen burners, and we put a toothpick through a match, and we set the match inside the Bunsen burner hole, and the match would never light on fire because it was hollow. The tip of the flame was always blue, but anyway, I don't know why I said all that, but let's focus on the fireball. You could do this how you want, but I start with the yellow. I don't really leave much white on this. It's not an explosion effect. If it was an explosion effect, then I would leave a little white, some white patches in here. On the fireball, though, I'm not looking to leave any white patches behind. I'm looking to whatever is going to be white. I'm gonna cover that with the yellow or the orange. You just don't want to. I don't want to leave on this particular fireball any white behind. I would if it was an explosion effect, like if we were doing, like a nuclear bomb or something like that, a bomb blast. But on this, no. And then we'll just pat those fibers down. It's going to airbrush a lot easier. Then we're going to continue on. Now I'm holding this in my hand. I'm painting with one hand and I'm holding this in my hand. So it just really doesn't pay to try to sit and anchor this down to anything. You're just going to damage the polyfill, and there's no real way to hold it because it's really, really light. There's no real way to like put a clamp on it or something. So I just do it in my hand. It's really easy. The paint is not like wet that it's going to come off on my glove. It goes on really light and it dries just about instantly. So I just fumble it around and I spin it around like a hot potato and I just continue painting. If you want to on yours, you can try to find some way to secure it down, but at the end of the day, you're probably really just going to damage the shape of the polyfill, and so it's not necessary. Hold that thing in your hand and paint it. And what I'll do is you'll see me closer or further away sometimes from the fireball with the airbrush. I want a more dense yellow, and then I want it to feather out into a more lighter dusting of yellow because I know that oranges are going to go over the top of those light spots, and so I'll move the airbrush further away from it. Here we're going to get a little bit of this orange, and I'm going to mix it in the cup and make use of that yellow that's in there now. It'll just give it a nice smooth, a smooth orange that's going to blend right in with that yellow and make a nice sort of transitional color over the top of the base yellow there. We'll just mix that up real good, and then we'll keep on spraying. These are Vallejo game paints, and they're made for doing painting with brushes, but you can airbrush them too. Just reduce it down good enough and you'll be golden. Sort of like the color of the paint I'm using, golden. But anyway, that wasn't funny. So here, now as I get further away from the tip that would go in the dragon's mouth, the flame's going to get a little bit darker. So we're going to go ahead and start on the underside there of the main ball of the fireball. We're going to put some darker oranges in there and start building that up. I'm going to get closer with the airbrush and further away. I'm going to, add more or less paint as I pull the trigger back, more or less, letting paint out. And you can see the paint coming out, and sometimes it's coming out hard, sometimes it's coming out slow. This thing, I'll tell you what, it's like trying to paint Jello. But yeah, you just want to build this stuff up and really get some nice transitions in there. You don't want to go over all the yellow, because remember, you want these colors that sort of blend and feather into one another. You don't want these hard lines of transition. You want it to look pretty smooth and pretty organic, and have those seamless transitions in there. And so don't cover up all your yellow. Leave some yellow, leave some darker yellow, leave some lighter yellow, but cover those whites. There you go. And it looks different when you're looking at the fireball in the LED lights of the paint booth. It looks a lot brighter and a lot less colorful than it is. It looks more one color in the paint booth, but it's really not. It's just the way the camera's recording it. You'll see when I take it back over to the table that there's quite a bit of different varying color and transitions and stuff in it. But this is so easy. This is like, you know, a really simple project to do. And I love it because I did it with the Ninja Turtles. I've done it with Vaporoni. You know, I've got a cannon that I use for Popeye that has a cannon blast effect out of it. It's basically this same kind of thing here, but on a smaller scale. So I said all that to say, really, that these things come in handy, and it's good to have a bag of varying size cannon blasts or, you know, effects on hand, because you never know when you're going to need to pull one out of the bag and put it on your set and photograph something cool with a nice explosion. All right, let's keep trucking. So the next colors I'm going to use, I'm going to go in here with a red, sort of blend that into the yellow and the orange. Not putting it everywhere, just putting it to create a nice transition of color more toward, you know, the top third of the fireball itself, leaving pretty much the bottom, you know, 2/3 alone, because it has the yellow and orange already. So kind of just think about it that way. You're just doing this in thirds. Here we're going to put the red on, blend it right into the cup, reduce it down a little bit, make sure that it flows through there. And this is going to go, like I say, on the last about third of the fireball here. And then the last thing we'll put on is just a little tiny bit of black. I mean, a little tiny bit, because you don't want to ruin it. And the same thing with spray paint. Get your yellow, get your red, get your black, get outside, enjoy the sunlight, dust this. You know, you don't want to spray with the spray paint from a distance. Don't spray right up on top of this thing. You want to let the spray paint fall onto the fireball. So look here, you couldn't appreciate all this color in the paint booth. The lights are just different, but you've got your yellow, you've got some oranges, you've got some reds, and a little black on the tip and the sides. Man, it looks really cool. We're going to use the 3M spray again. Going to mat down all the little wild hairs. Get those things under control. Nobody wants a chicken leg with a bunch of fibrous hairs poking out. Looks like a chicken leg, doesn't it? But that's okay. But look, we started with just some materials, right? Some polyfill, some hot glue, some wire, and an idea. And here we are. I mean, we've got a fireball. Store these in a gallon Ziploc bag. All your different fireballs and fireball sizes can go in one bag. It helps protect them, keeps their shape, keeps them from getting snagged on stuff. And now you've got fireballs that you can use anytime you want to. Hey, if you haven't done so, like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Check me out on Instagram, insightful_imagery. If you're not a Patreon member, please check out my Patreon, also Insightful Imagery on Patreon. I'm on TikTok, Facebook, here on YouTube. And I give all kinds of free files away for 3D printing. My Patreon is full of STL files and painting tutorials, and I am adding more and more tutorials like this here and photography tips and tricks too. So if you like toy photography and building props and painting and all the stuff that goes along with this rabbit hole of a hobby, then consider taking me along with you on the journey. Take care.